Hey everybody, it's Beej with Lambda School. Today we're going to continue on with Django and talk about how we create records with Django. As we saw yesterday when we tried to create a record through the API interface, it told us we couldn't do it because we didn't specify a user. So what we're going to do in this objective is add additional fields when we're creating records. We want to add that user field when we create a personal note. Now we're already logged in as that user, so it'll be nice if we can use that information about whomever is logged in right now and use that to populate the new personal note. Additionally, once we've done that, when we get results, it would be nice to filter those results by the currently logged in user. So we'll look at both of those things here. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is add that user field. And we're going to do this in api.py. So where we've done our other work here, declaring our personal note serializer and our personal note view set and so on, we are going to we're going to override the creation functionality of how this works. So in our personal note serializer, we'll do this. This will override the default create functionality. And what we can do here is we can create a new personal note and we can pass in that validated data. And then we can return that personal note. And so here's what actually is going to happen with the default behavior. Objects create, and we're going to pass in the validated data as keyword arguments. That's what these two asterisks mean here. It's going to take this dictionary and pass it in as keyword arguments to create. So if you're rusty on keyword arguments, go look that up. And then we're going to return that note. So this is kind of our default behavior. When we create the note, we get some validated data. So we make a new personal note with that validated data and we return it. But this doesn't have anything to do with users. We haven't added any user data yet. So we're going to use this opportunity to take a look at the debugger and see how the debugger works. I'm going to put this one line of code in here. And remember, the semicolon is a command separator in Python. So I've basically put two commands on the same line here, separated them by a semicolon. And so what this is going to do is going to fire up the debugger as soon as this line of code is hit somewhere. And we know this line of code gets hit when we try to create a new object through the API. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go over here and we'll start our server. Everything seems to be happy so far, and then I'll have a look at the server, and here's our test that we're about to post for our personal note. And if I click post at this point, it says waiting for localhost here at the bottom, and we've stopped. And this is because we've hit that breakpoint in the debugger. And so if we have another look back here at the debugger, or at where we're running our server, you see we've broken out here, and now we are in the Python debugger. Python debugger has a lot of commands, but one of them is L to list where we are. And we can see that this is the line of code, the one with the arrow. This is the one that is about to execute. It hasn't executed yet, but it is about to execute. And we are inside the create function here. And at this point, we can do things like say, hey, what is self? Self is a personal note serializer, context, all kinds of stuff here. It's got, and what else we have? We have validated data. Title is test2 and content is test, which is sure enough what I typed in right here. So within create, our validated data contains a dictionary that has our stuff in it. So we're passing that in as title equals test2 and content equals test. We're passing that into objects create for our personal note. So our personal note will get created with these things. But as we know, the personal note needs to have a user information associated with it as well. So where can we get the user? It's documented, but we can also poke around in the debugger here. We see that self has a context field in it. And within that, we've got a request and format and view. But I like request because request often has that kind of information attached to it. So self.context sub request. We have a look at this. It says it's a request object. We can ask more about it. What else do we have here? We got all this stuff attached to this request object, all these attributes all over the place. Oh, but peeking around, one of them is this really suspicious looking one. User. Self.request.user. A simple lazy object, whatever that is, but hey, user admin, I like it. So this is kind of a neat thing. Let's take a copy of that. And then we can type continue or C to just simply continue running. And then we end up with that error that we saw before, saying that we don't have a user ID associated with it. But now we have some more information. We know where the user is kept. So let's pop over here and grab that user. User equals self context request user. Now, validated data is being passed in as a bunch of keyword arguments. Title equals something, content equals something. We can add more keyword arguments right to the front of this. User equals something. So now I've got effectively 3 keyword arguments. I've got user, and I know within validated data, as we saw, we have title and content. That is the pieces we need to make this thing work right. So I'm going to save this. And then let's have a look back here. Our server has restarted. I've taken out my breakpoint. And let's go ahead and try to add that personal note. I'm going to hit reload here. Actually, I don't want to resubmit that form. Let's back up. Let's see if this works. I'm going to post that note. All right, we got a 201 created. And title is test 2 and content is test finally. And that is our personal notes list right there. Actually, it's the one we just created. So I'm going to click here. We can see all our notes now. So, and this is everybody's notes who's ever made anything. So wouldn't it be nice to actually filter that a little bit? If I go here to, oops, I don't want to go there. We want to go to admin. Let's duplicate this tab so I have multiple ones here. Admin, I'm going to log out, and then I'm going to log in again, except I'm going to log in as Fred, please. So now I'm logged in as Fred. I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit reload. And it says we're logged in as Fred now. And I'm still seeing all these personal notes from admin, even though I'm Fred. That's kind of irksome. We need to somehow be able to restrict this thing so that we only see Fred's notes when we're logged in as Fred. I'll go ahead and post a new note from Fred here. And then we see admin's notes when we're logged in as admin. So let's do a little bit of stuff to make that happen. It's not too bad. Right here in personal note view set, this is where we're deciding which records to return. And here we're just saying, oh, hey, return them all, by the way. But there is a method we can override to be more discriminating. So instead of just declaring the query set like that, we can make another query set generator, if you want to call it that. Call it get query set. So by overriding this method in here, we can be more discriminating based on something. And in this case, we want to base it on which user is logged in. So let's do a couple things. One of them is I already know, because I dug around in the docs, that the user can be found here in self.request.user. So we can get the user from there. And then we're going to do another check here. If user is anonymous, this means the user is not logged in. Then let's return no objects if you're not logged in. And there's a way to do that with the ORM. It's called personal note objects none. This will return an empty array, but of the type personal note. So it'll have the right type. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and change this to none as well. Otherwise, if the user is not anonymous, let's do something. So we could return personal note .objects.all, and then we'd be back in the same boat that we were just in, right? If you're logged in, we would show you all the objects, but if you're not logged in, we don't show you any. But we don't want to show all the objects to everybody. We want to filter the objects based on user. And if you remember, there is a filter method here that can filter results based on what a field is equal to. And in this case, we want to filter the results based on the user that's currently logged in, the one that we grabbed right here out of the request. So pretty straightforward stuff. We overrode get query set. We're going to decide which query set to return based on something. That something is which user is logged in. So we looked at the currently logged in user. If the user was not logged in, we return nothing. Otherwise, if the user is logged in, we return the objects filtered by the current user. So we filter out everything from the currently logged in user. We see our server's restarted here. And now I'm logged in as Fred. We're getting the personal note list. I'm going to hit reload here. And now we just see Fred's note. If I come back here, we log out. Let's log in again as admin. And then, so now we're logged in as admin. I come over here, I'm going to hit reload. And now I see admin's notes. So we've successfully filtered out, based on the currently logged in user, whose notes we get to see. So it's a challenge. Change your other endpoint to show no data if the user is not logged in. Or if your other endpoint that you've created works with multiple users, then do similar user filtering to what we did today. And as always, thanks for watching.